Welcome back to Black Belt Secrets. I've had several requests now to do some videos on stretching and flexibility, so let's get right to it. You can see I'm starting off with the standard knees to the chest exercise, but you'll see they're coming up in a straight line, not to the center of the chest, so they're coming up in line with each shoulder. Next we're going to do up to the outside. Now this is important that you're not using momentum to make this action happen. You're lifting them up in an outwards direction. This is so that you're working all of the muscles in the hips to make the action work. You're not relying on any momentum whatsoever, and you're certainly not pushing it beyond a natural range of movement. You're just lifting and pushing. You're going to do that until you feel warm, and then you're just going to give your hips a light push and round off to the sides just to loosen the inner parts of the joints up, just so that they feel loose. Now the next thing when you're doing this, I'm going to extend it slightly by pushing into this sideways movement. Some of you may feel or hear a little click or a crack. It shouldn't be painful. If it's painful, stop what you're doing, but most of the time you'll feel or hear something just giving way. So you must relax into this position, as most what we're going to do is not going to be uncomfortable. The next part of the warm-up routine, it's important to emphasize you're not using your leg muscles to make this happen. We are naturally opening up and rounding off the hips. So you can see the action here. I've got my knees extended to the side and I'm pulling backwards and forth. Then I'm going to go around in circles up to the chest and outwards, and then back around again. And then I'm going to change directions. So I'm going to come outwards first, up to the chest, and then back down the middle. So I'm going to do several rotations like this just to warm up the hip joints, but again I'm not using the leg muscles, and the reason for that is I want the hip joints to be open and flexible without any hindrance from the muscles in the legs. Then you're going to hold one knee up to the chest, and you're just going to let the other leg move about slightly freely down in a straight line. That's going to open up the front of the hip socket as well, and then the same on the other side. So nice and relaxed, you're just going to move the leg around just to open up that front hip socket there. And once you've done this sufficiently, it doesn't take long after you've done some practice, but just as long as you need to. Next is going to be something you'll be quite familiar with, but I'm doing it in a slightly different way you might be used to. So I've got the front leg bent and the rear leg straight, or near enough straight, but what I'm doing is I'm rotating that hip joint on that rear leg. So I'm allowing the leg to move over, and my upper body is turning contrary to my rear leg just to turn it over, and then I'm going to relax forwards, again opening up the front part of the hip joint. So you'll see it again on the other side. I'm going to have the front leg is going to be bent and the rear leg is going to be straight. Now you can see I'm rotating the hip joint using my upper body to move left and right, but allowing that rear leg and foot to flop over like a fish flopping over. So I'm just allowing it to flop from one side to the other, and what that's going to do is allow the hip joint to start moving freely left and right. And finally I'm going to relax down to the front, which is actually working on both hips on both sides. It will be the inner hip on one side and the front of hip on the other side. So you're just going to relax down into that position. Again, important to relax into these positions. So next is really the focus of this video. It's the most important stretch I've ever used. So you're going to hold one knee up to the chest and just relax first of all, and let that other opposite leg out straight and relax. And then you're going to make a big circle, keeping the leg straight, up and around, and then back down to the starting position. But you're going to make this circle as big as you can, up as far as it will come, across as far as it will go, and then right the way around on the outer arc of your movement back to where it started. And you're going to make this circle 3 or 4 times, and then you're going to find the spot that's the most sticking point at which you feel is sort of stuck in the hip area, that it can't go any further. It may sort of jolt back and forth a little bit. So you're going to move backwards and forwards 10 times or so on this particular area where it's most stuck, and then you're just going to leave it hanging out there in a straight line off the floor, and just going to hold it for 10 to 15 seconds for the first time around. So this is your first main stretch. Then you're going to bring it back to starting position once more, and again you're going to make the big circle. You'll find quite quickly this circle will be bigger than it was before. If you've not done this before, it may feel like it's opening up things that you've not really felt. And again, you're going to make several big circles just until you feel you've found that one sticking point. And it may be a different part each time. It may not be in the same place on each one of these repetitions. Here it's slightly different for me on the second time round, but you find the sticking point, and then you're going to move back and forth about 10 times on this spot where it's the most stuck, And then once you've done that, again, you're going to leave it hanging out there in that spot and just completely relax. So you are using your leg muscles at this point to hold it in place, but you are going to completely relax. Don't worry too much if it feels tired or even if it starts to shake. That's happened many times and that doesn't really cause any problems. So again, you're going to repeat this a good 4 or 5 times. You can do the circle really slowly to really find that sticking point, and just make it a smooth, fluid motion, big circle. Find the sticking point that you get to, back and forth 10 times or so across that sticking point. And then on the final time, when you feel like you've had enough stretching for this session, you're going to hang it out there for a good 30 or 40 seconds. As long as you've done your warm-ups and you're normally doing some kind of training, then this is absolutely fine. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend this for beginners for the first time around, but your body will tell you what's right and what's not. So don't do anything that's painful. This shouldn't be painful. In fact, there shouldn't be any pain in this at all. A light stretching sensation probably, but certainly no sharp pains, not even any pulling pains. Then to get out of this position, just roll yourself over onto the opposite knee and up you get. Do watch the repeat on the opposite side as well, as it may be slightly different and there'll be a couple of pointers for you to look out for. Now, most of us are more flexible on one side than the other. That's often because we are left or right-handed, and usually that side of the body is dominant. Often even it might be the opposite side to your left or right hand that is dominant, and therefore one side is usually more flexible than the other, and that's more noticeable in the joints than it is anywhere else. You'll find that on this side, right off the bat, my big circle, my leg is much closer to the floor than it was the first time around, or at least it feels that way because it feels much more flexible in my right hip, which is quite common, but it will tell you that you may need to spend slightly longer on one side than the other, or it may be a slightly different place or something like that. But after some time you will balance out both sides and then you can advance both sides together. So again, we've made the big circles, I've found the sticking point for this leg, I'm going back and forth 10 times or so across that area, and then I'm going to relax and I'm going to hang the leg out there using the muscles to hold it in place, but for the rest I'm just relaxing. You will feel a slight stretching. It shouldn't be a painful pulling, but you will certainly feel the muscles pulling in that direction. And then again, you're going to return to nice big circles, keeping the leg as straight as you can, up straight to 90 degrees or just beyond 90 degrees, out as far as it will go, and then back across the floor, close to the floor as you can, just a few times until you get to that sticking point, or you feel there's one particular point that you want to open up slightly to increase that range of motion and flexibility. And then again, you're going to go 10 times or so back across that area, and then let it hang out there. On each of these repetitions you can hang out there for 10 or 15 seconds, and then on the final one you can start to increase it 30 seconds or 40 seconds, or however long you feel you might benefit that particular stretch. And again, roll yourself over and then get yourself up. Make sure you give your legs a good shake to loosen them up before you do anything else. But next up, I also find this a really useful stretch, so I'm going to include it as well. I call it the crab position because we do the crab walk in this position, but what I'm going to do is just slowly ease back and forth, nice fluid motion, as though I'm doing a crab walk on the floor, but obviously don't need to move anywhere. Important to note that my heels are on the floor. You may not get all the way down at first, but you'll gradually work your way down, and then occasionally just stretch your legs out as well. So once more, I'm going to go in and out of this position, just easing my way around, nice and fluid, just allowing the hips to open up. Then from here I'm going to drop down into what some might call a double hurdling position or a seated crab position. Ladies will probably find this easier than men because hips are built slightly differently. But either way, you'll sit into this position and just ease yourself around left and right, circles to the left, circles to the right. At first it may not be comfortable, but again, as you ease into it, it will become more so. Careful with the knees. If you get any pain in the knees whatsoever, just stop and come out of that position because you don't want to injure the knees. Then you can alternate back and forth from stretching the legs from crab position and seated crab position. So once you've done this for a couple of weeks, or you're already quite flexible, then I'd move into what I would call my final phase, which includes stretching for side splits. Now this I would call my half side split position. Important to note that the heel is flat on the floor on the bent leg each side, and I'm going to rotate back and forth using the muscles to get from one side to another. And then gradually you're just going to lower yourself in. But again, there shouldn't be any sharp pain here. If there's any sharp pain, you need to repeat the rest of the stretching routines before you come back to this. There's no point forcing this, because all you'll do is injure muscles and you'll extend the overall stretching time required. So thank you for watching. I hope you found it useful. Please do drop me some comments in the section if there's anything you'd like me to go over again. And please subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thank you for watching.